the realization for an engineer to realize that technology is not the most important thing are different from traditional AI models in ChatGPT. How they may impact the evolve. How my business profitability will get impacted if a large, big models coming up. So there is always a next wave of technology coming to it. I want cloud, but that works for me. The data should reside on something else. The cost of it, digitization is a data problem. How can I get the most analytics out? There is a cost implication. There is 100 token of investment to be done. What happened in fintech world in India? Companies will start ignoring that now. Have started India Cloud. We are making progress.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Luminary Lounge. We call it as the nexus where ideas meet innovation. So I'm your host Mohini, and today we have a truly luminary guest joining us. So he's a trailblazer in the tech industry, someone who has seen the evolution of technology from up close and personal. So please welcome Yogesh Paliwal, Director of Product Management at Cisco. So welcome Yogesh, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Mohini, for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Before we jump into some nitty-gritty details, could you tell our listeners a bit about your background and career path? I have heard that you have a quite interesting story.
Well, interesting or not, I'll let you judge. But I started in technology about 20 years back. Like many technical folks, I was computer science postgraduate from IIT and started coding for a while. My interest was, very soon I realized that I am not the best fit for coding. And this was an odd thing to say 20 years back for a computer science postgraduate from IIT. But I said, I want to understand the larger system. So I looked at what used to be called solution test, solution validation at that point of time. I've done a bunch of engineering roles. I've been an escalation engineer. I've been a go-to-market person, support person. So we're different head within the engineering, but then I also been, on the business side, like I said, I've been a strategy PMO, and I've been doing wireless product management now for like about 7 years. So that's different roles that I played in terms of, exposure. I was most of my journey has been with Cisco. So when I started, I was based out of India. I worked out of Bangalore office for like 10 years. And then I'm here in California now for about 7 years. In terms of, the one good thing about the corporation that I work with is it allows you to kind of do what you want to do. Some people ask me, but isn't that, is truly that flexible? And I always joke about it saying, nobody minds in the corporation that I work in. Nobody minds if you give them a helping hand and do somebody else's job for free. So you get exposure, you try different things, and you do what you want to do. I don't know if you're looking for a specific anecdote, but over the years, when I kind of moved different roles, different geographies, there always been a pivot points in the career, which sort of allowed me. I always thought of wanting to do something new, and opportunity presented itself, and I latched onto it. So there are various stories that we can talk to in the further course of action.
Okay. Yeah, this sounds interesting. So let's start with the first question. So Yogesh, I would love to hear about your journey. Like, was there any Eureka moment that really sparked your leadership path? Like something that made you realize this is what you were meant to do?
Two, three different things. I would say there was never a moment where I slept on a day and the next day I realized I'm a leader. But two, three different things that comes to mind when you talk about this. One is the realization for an engineer to realize that technology is not the most important thing. It's the business problem or the user problem that you're trying to solve. It was a hard pill to swallow. Coming from a hardcore engineering background, like, hey, I can do so many cool technological things. Well, if there's not a market for it and it's not really solving problem, nobody cares, even if you have the coolest thing. So that's number one. Number two, lesson that I learned was you may have the coolest of the product out there, but if you don't have the ecosystem, and channels to be able to kind of get to your customer and kind of narrate the story in a way that they feel that your product is solving that problem for them, and nobody's going to buy it. So I may be, in a different world where I'm thinking I have the coolest product out there and people will come and buy it. It doesn't happen like that. So some of the lessons that I talk about, or I learned, I would say hard way, is to solve the problems, you need a village uh, from different functions, different skill sets, and to get them together is what is the job of the leader, to see the whole picture together. Now, when I say leadership, it doesn't mean you're a leader by your role. Leaders are there in different functions. They get job done. They may or may not have the title, right? Uh, Being a manager does not justify or does not qualify you as a leader. So these are being different anecdotes, and that I still try to kind of relate to it. Don't get too excited about any technological element. Don't get too excited about anything product. Always get excited about customers' problem that you're solving for. Within our team, uh, the PMs or the product managers, we call them problem managers, especially informally, because if your product is aligned to the problem that customer is trying to solve for, and secondness is willing to pay for that, then you're doing a good job. So these are different traits. Now, of course, when you're looking at the problem, your attitude matters, right? Like it's how you kind of look at that problem and the technological pieces that you have to put together and draw a larger picture for the team, and then rally the team around to kind of deliver that picture for you is a job for the leader.
So moving ahead, so like everyone have challenges in their life. So can you share any important moment that was crucial in shaping your career?
Okay. So maybe I'll start from schooling and then we'll go to the professional career. I come from a very rural background in Rajasthan, India. Growing up, and I just talked about initially, I did major in computer science, right? Uh, I did not touch computers, the real computer. It'll be hard for people like of your age to believe till I was in first year of my computer science. My only exposure to computers was at the railway booking counter or in the bank, a machine that I would see from a distance. So at that point of time, I would say scarcity or not having those resources created this fascination of, hey, what is this thing and how can we kind of use it to change the life? First, get access to it and then see how we can kind of better our lives with it. So that's one part. Um, in terms of career and professional challenges or pivotal points, I would say two, three different things. One is having the right set of mentors helps a lot. Um, Mentors who expose you to different things. Think like an early career person. When you get to a technical job, especially in India, you are fascinated by two things. Number one is the money. That it like how can I land to the highest paying job, right? Or second is, am I getting to a very well known brand? Now things have changed drastically. I would say many younger people are getting into startup world, but those are the two things that used to be primary criteria for anybody getting into tech in early 2000s. Um, One thing I was fortunate enough to land in two good corporate, two offers straight out of IIT, and I picked the one. So here's the dilemma that I had. I had two job offers, and the one that was paying more and had a good brand reputation was not the one that I was fascinated about. I was always fascinated about networks, right? So I wanted to join Cisco, but Cisco was paying less. Um, I had an option to go with the obvious choice of good brand and good money, but then I had good mentor around me and said, "Do what you like because you'll enjoy it more." So that's one. Having good mentors certainly helps, and I have no regrets of picking that choice. Of course, if I would put the other one, probably I would have made many more dollars and uh, money around it. But that's in hindsight. Everybody could be smarter. So do the things that you enjoy is the one lesson that I learned from early mentors. Then be open to try out different things. And this is a failure story for me. I was very keen of staying in a particular technology and a particular geography early in my career. And at some point, one of the mentors told me this: if this geography and doesn't have access to certain kind of roles, then you're limiting yourself, right? That I realized it too late in my career. Now, hopefully, those kind of limitation zones exist in the Indian ecosystem, but the product roles in India were very far and few 10 years back, right? Uh, and I was very very uh, rigid about me not moving out of India to pursue those kind of roles. I was still doing the job out of India, but I was not. I was helping people, like doing a free job, as I was saying. Not so much that hey, I want to do this role and I'm open to this. So be flexible in your approach. That is the second lesson that I learned. Um, Third lesson I would say is career is not a straight line, right? Especially when we come out of the college, we look at, like I said, the salary amount and the title we are looking for, but we have to look at it. Hey, this is the long inning that I'm going to play for next 30-35 years of my life. Now I might play it at one place, or I might play it at 5 different places or 10 different places, but expecting that whatever parameter that I value, I'm going to go look like a sharp hockey stick curve. Doesn't happen like that. Career is journey in a different roles, and sometimes you feel like you're not making a progress. Sometimes you may feel like you're going down the parameters that you value. But it's about long term. At the end of third, whatever time period that you're looking for, where you are, and as long as you're open to that, things will work out. So these are 3-4 different things that I've learned. I would say hard way, and I would advise my younger self to kind of be a little more open to these when am I entering in the job market 20 years back.
Okay, this sounds a great roller coaster ride. And so, moving ahead, so with technology evolving so quickly, how do you stay on top of all the changes and keep your head wrapped around a complex set of technologies?
Well, you learn everything. It's not possible to learn everything. The technology has always been evolving at a rapid pace, and now with so many things at the technology being at the front and center of everything, You cannot keep pace with everything that is going out there. So then you have to have your own strategies on what you think is important for you to kind of be aware of. What are the things that are absolutely in your area, and then you need to kind of know day-to-day things. But in general, if you're talking about, let's just say, talk about Gartner's hype curve and say, what's going on in AI? Right? Hey, should I be knowing everything that I hear about LLM and Gen AI every day? And I would say this, even if you want to do that, it's humanly not possible. It's also not true that AI was invented in 2022, right? When everybody heard about ChatGPT. The first theoretical AI model for ML was written in 1994 or 1944, right? Uh, when we were in the college, we had a course on AI, which means AI as a system has been there. Uh, it became and lot many, I would say few, in a single digit companies have been making billions of dollars over the years from using different AI systems. What has happened now, for example, is because of ChatGPT, everyone can see the potential and they see how do I use it. So now, the addressable market, while earlier there were only 5 or 10 or 20 companies were using it, now every company kind of can make use of it, right? So every product person wants to learn it. Is it humanly possible for, I go back to your question of, is it humanly possible for you to, AI just one piece, there are other elements of technology, but can you learn everything? Answer is no. I would even go other way and say domain, the areas that you work on and how things work there is more important than knowing everything about AI. However, as a technology person, you have to keep yourself updated on what different trends of. They just continue to use ChatGPT as an example. How those transformation models are different from traditional AI, because that's number one thing. Like, what is the change now that is not there before? Two, if those transformer models are there in ChatGPT, how they may impact the area that I work in, right? That's the second part. What are the use cases that may impact? This is the thing that we need. Every technological person should be thinking about today. Third, the most important thing is, how do you expect it to evolve? Evolve in the sense of how my business profitability will get impacted if I kind of start using these use cases. I'll use the same example. About a year back or 6 months back, I would say large, big models coming out of those 3, 4 big companies, training them was the thing, and everybody was kind of chasing them. And as you started looking at these and how do I incorporate it in my products, and people started realizing, but those are very expensive to train, very expensive to maintain. Maybe we do small LLMs that are domain specific. It's hard to, it's much easier, cost effective to kind of train them. So how that new technology space itself is evolving. You don't have to know about every little detail of that LLM space, but if you know how this is evolving my problem space, my product space, and my profitability, you'll do a good job. Again, very important thing here to keep in mind is to tell yourself that no, I cannot keep pace with everything, right? If person can make peace with it and then kind of build a structure around where he says, these are the things that I absolutely need to be on cutting edge. These are the things that are relevant to my area, and I want to be able to aware of what is going on. And here are the things that I will not even worry about. And it's important to have that strategy, because I go back to the example that I use about computer and my first, exposure to computer. That was lack of availability of resource at that time. 20 years after, we are at information explosion era where there's just too much of information. You can't keep up with it. So the model has flipped from scarcity to abundance. And in the abundance world, you have to be very, very intentional on how you want to approach your learning.
Okay. So, as you mentioned about AI, just curious to know that what do you think? Is it a curse or a boon, or is it taking a creativity away?
Uh, Unfortunately, the answer is going to be it depends how you see it.
Mhm.
Uh, 3 years back, it was blockchain. 3 years before that, it was cloud computing, right? So there is always a next wave of technology coming to it. In fact, I go back. Somebody was saying I was in India a couple of weeks back, and one of the customers said, "Is AI going to take jobs away?" Right? And then he himself answered, "But 25 years back, people said computers are going to take people's job away." So that's one part to it. The second part of it is it's not the technology; it's how do you make use of it, right? Uh, that decides what the technology would do. I'm going to use one very old example and then we'll come back to your AI question. I can use nuclear power to generate electricity and power homes. And that's happening everywhere across the world. That's a good use of that technology. We also saw what happened in World War II in different cities in Japan using the same technology. So it's not about the technology, it's how do you make use of technology. Now, I think what you're saying is, oh, but I see so many AI models these days that I guess just go and tell them, generate an image, generate a video, and XYZ. So now, as a creator, do I really need creators? Or can just AI generate all the images for me? Right? I go back and say this. This is probably, I would say, negative way of looking at things. Here's the positive way of looking at things. I am uh, a product person on a network and connectivity domain. If I use AI and the tools that you talk about, which is I know nothing about creativity in just say artistic way, right? Or for finance for that point of view, right? So my knowledge about those domains is that I would say out of 105. And maybe I'm being generous to myself, maybe one or two. But if I use these tools, I could be if I use these tools effectively, then I could be at a 40 or a 50 or a 60 level using the AI tools, right? I can't still be Picasso, drawing those amazing drawings. So if there's an AI tool, it will allow you as an individual to become expert at anything or an average person at everything and do the things that you want to do where you needed help of 5 other people. Now you can do it yourself, right? That means it's helping you improve your productivity, right? So depending on how you look at it, it's different thing. Are you going to say that if AI can generate music, you don't need A.R. Rahman? That's not true.
Right.
The individual that you talk about is a maestro at his job. He's going to do 100 out of 100. AI can probably do 60 or 70, or AI can just copy and you can say generate this music or use this lyrics and generate a music or how A.R. Rahman does. Then it'll create a replica of A.R. Rahman. Now that creates a different job for somebody to say, hey, which one is real A.R. Rahman, which one is the fake, right? So that's a different problem to solve for. But no, I don't think uh, AI is there to kind of reduce anybody's creativity. It is there to help, again, depending on how we use and aid you and then kind of there's a term that you use these days called co-pilot, right? So help you doing the job in more efficient way and improve your productivity in general.
Yes, so you have put down that very nicely along with examples. So thank you for that. So my next question for you is like, so looking ahead, where do you see your company in the next 5 years, especially with technological advancements, and how will your leadership help stir this direction?
So the company that I work is Cisco Systems. We have been what I call the plumbers of the application folks. So when 25 years back, internet was being built and different applications came together, Cisco was a pioneer company that sort of built internet, helped with wired connectivity across the world in Web 1.1, Web 2.0 times. Um, as you know, iPhone came together and wireless sort of, that's my pet area that I work on these days. That came together, then we added mobility aspect to the connectivity, which means you can go anywhere in the world and still be connected, right? And that in India itself, you saw what Geo did in last 10 years, empowering and connecting so many unconnected folks over the world, right? Now, as we see the enterprises sort of taking digitization journey, or it's called digital transformation, and you will hear this in every vertical out there. Um, those companies wanting to do different applications. That means everyone is looking at, if I'm in manufacturing, if I'm in healthcare, if I'm in XYZ, how, oh, and they come back and say, how do I make use of AI? But then to be able to make use of AI, they used to connect their infrastructure first, right? Now, when you connect the infrastructure, how do you make sure, and your business line of business now depends on technology, because that's what you're doing in digital transformation. So then it's our job in my org to say, we'll make sure we provide you connectivity first, but of course, make sure it's resilient, it's secure, and it has every other element that is needed um, to make sure that now, because your mission critical applications are on network, they stay there, because them going down would mean your business is going down, right? So that's that part. In terms of where Cisco is going, Cisco is focused on providing resilient digital infrastructure for the folks to build around it. How leadership will help there, and in general, this is going to be true for every other vertical and company, not just Cisco. Um, there is something called hype, and then there is a reality, right? And all marketers across the world use the hype cycle to make sure either they use technology, they use trend to set expectations. It's very high. But when you start to execute in execution world, you start make trade-offs based on the resources, or the ability to execute, I would say, and what you can get done in a given time frame. So then the leadership comes to play, is where you're making the right trade-offs and delivering, if not 100, at least outcome for 70 and 80%, right? That's what product leadership is about. That's what in general leadership is about, making best use of resources for the best outcome that you can deliver.
Great one. So, could you share some strategies you use to achieve your company goal?
I would say this again. I work so we have a larger corporate strategy, and then within that, I'm responsible for product line that I am responsible for. Personally, again, I said it's like I use the paraphrase or the term earlier called problem managers, right? So not getting too excited about the hype curves, but staying focused on the problems that are out there or could be out there in another 2 years. And I'm just going to use AI just because we've been talking about it a lot. Everyone is talking about what is possible using AI. What are the security implications? Because the bad actors, the guy who used to steal your information, also has access to AI tools now. Who's building against it, right? So the use case, the real problems out there, or the real problems that may get created because of the new technology in the space that you're working on, staying close to that, and then making the right trade-offs and also building profitability inside it are, 2, 3 things that every product leader thinks about when he is making a bet for the future in his product strategy. And we are no different. I could use one not so good example and one good example on how not doing this may or may not help, right? Facebook X was in trouble when Twitter was in trouble when Musk acquired them, let go of many people. There was an app that got created in India, I believe, Coup or something, and it hit a very high, user cycle on and every KPI that you can think of, active users, daily, monthly. It was going through the roofs, but the profitability was not built in. It lived its hype cycle. I believe last week they decided to close it. Not so good thing, right? Geo, when it came, Reliance Geo, and it depends on your capability. Like I said, the resources that you have at your, so you have to kind of build based on the context that you are in. But when Reliance Geo was launched, and I was thankfully part of it, being part of Cisco's team in India, I spent about 3 years building Reliance Geo's infrastructure, right? When it got launched, there were many people who were doubting in terms of vision of saying, how will they become profitable? How will they make money out of it? Right? But when somebody has a vision and kind of has the resources that they need to be able to do that, and they think of long-term profitability, you may or may not make money in short term, but long term it works out. So staying close to your context and problem space and kind of being realistic to yourself are few things that a product leader can do. In and kind of while dealing with the hype, hype cycles and everything else. And by the way, I don't mean to say that hype cycle is wrong, right? If you hit your product strategies and it's aligned to hype cycle, then you get a free marketing, right? What happened with Zoom in Corona times was one classic example. They had the right product and it worked out beautifully for them. So nothing wrong with that.
Right. Given your experience driving technology strategies, what are your technology predictions for the next 2 years in cloud computing and networking?
So I would do 2, 3 different things here, right? And I'll look, everything is in cloud. There's no question about that. What we have seen and we are starting to see now is I want cloud, but I want the cloud my kind of cloud that works for me. For certain countries, for example, there is a policy decision the government of that particular geography has said the data should reside where it is. Right? So then somebody would want country-specific cloud. Somebody want private cloud, right? So cloud in itself has evolved a lot. People have realized the benefit of the cloud that it comes. So nobody is saying I don't want a cloud, but then they want the cloud that meets their requirements in terms of privacy, in terms of regulations, in terms of the cost structure and everything else. That's one big thing. Second thing is cloud the right solution for the thing that I'm trying to solve for? And I'm going to use AI as an example to say, if I'm training my LLM models, inexpensive clouds versus I'm buying um, a local GPU and doing it for myself. How does that work? The jury is still out on how the LLM model and the profitability will be built in. But cloud and AI to put together will have a interesting evolution in next 2 to 3 years. And there may be a scenario where you will not see one global model, but you might see local models, geography specific models, depending on how things turn out. And why we are talking about AI and cloud? We talked about digitization across every vertical that is happening. For digitization, you're trying to connect unconnected things. You will get a lot of data, right? And in past, we used to say networking or security is data problem. Now I would say digitization is a data problem. Because when you're getting data, this huge data, then it's about where I keep my data, what are the privacy and cost implications of that data, how can I get the most analytics out of that data, which is relevant for my user, right? Now, in all these questions that you'll try to answer, there is a cost implication, there is a profitability implications, and that will drive how product evolves around it. So I've not given you a direct answer of how do I expect these two things to go, but I'll give you this. When I was in college, or maybe before that, people didn't have PCs. Before that, it was a mainframe. Mainframe was a centralized computer that was out there somewhere where you would go and compute. And the reason you had mainframe was you could not afford, everybody could not afford that. Though, again, I go to this case city example. You could not afford it, so you had to go and use some centralized process somewhere. Then, personal computer came in. Somebody was smart enough to kind of give you a small compute capability with the use cases that you had at that point of time. And that's how Microsoft sort of became the thing that it became. So from mainframe we went to personal computing. So from a centralized computing, we went to a distributed computing. Then came the SaaS world, which is your SaaS applications in the cloud. So we went again to a centralized computing model, right? Now, with AI coming in and how the profitability gets around it, are we looking at centralized computing or a distributed computing? Anybody's guess. But it will change for sure. And these are the trends that there are different drivers, but the trends kind of remain the same. Like you do it at one place, you do it at a different place, and why are you doing it? You do it. So again, you did it mainframe because at that point of time, your primary concern was the cost. In the SaaS world, you did applications in the cloud. Your primary concern was not the cost, right? Your primary concern was something else. There are some other benefits that cloud was providing you. So now with AI coming together, as of today, where I see it, and if you ask me the same question a month from now, the answer could be different. But I see LLMs and AI coming, GPT kind of model coming and driving folks again towards distributed edge computing more so from the current SaaS model. But we'll see how it evolves.
Do you have like any methods for predicting or experimenting with these disruptive technologies?
Um, that's a great question. And I would say there is no generic metrics. It depends on the context that you're trying to solve for. In general, in terms of product strategy, right, you're always looking at different POCs from different technologies and what you can get out of it, right? So if I'm just going to use 100 token of investment to be done, probably have to keep 10, 20, whatever that small number of token for the experiments like this, right? So you're running your business all the time with 80, 85, whatever run rate that you can run, but you have to always think about and carve out bandwidth to be able to do these experiments. Now, depending on how these experiments go and what are the KPI, now those every experiment may have a different threshold of the KPI for what you're trying to achieve for that, right? Based on that, you decide whether you want to keep it, run it, lower threshold, higher threshold, um, um, and kind of you execute to that. Sometimes a small POC becomes a big success and it becomes part of your run rate product. Sometimes you keep running a POC and for 2 years and you close it. So that's uh, the decision of the product strategy team and how much they believe in the piece of technology, the problem space, and that defines their KPI. Unfortunately, I don't have a good straight answer for you on this is the KPI to be used for every POC that you run.
Okay. Like building team is an art. So how do you align your team with your mission?
Great question. A team and a outcome that a team can produce is function of three things: competency of the team. So then you want to have A players in the team, motivated individual who are motivated on the context. So competency is ability to do things. Context is the landscape that you're operating in, right? So if you have the competency in terms of skill set, and when I say skill set, again, it's not about coding and the software engineering work alone. It's go to market. It could be sales. It could be understanding. It could be UX. Anything, right? But the team that is consists of highly competent people in whatever their skill set, and hopefully getting help from AI chatbots now to kind of improve their competency. Second is the context, right? What are you trying to operate in? Are you operating in experimental technologies, such as, let's say, GPT or whatever else, or you're operating in mature industries and technologies? In that context, the success KPIs would be different. So for the team that is competent enough to understand the context that where I am operating in, and this is where the third and the most important part, which is communication, right? How I kind of connect the context to competencies of those individuals in the team and keep them aligned to the goals, the vision and strategy of the uh, organization that you're part of, so that they deliver the outcome that they are. Because as a leader, you can only communicate, here are the goals that we're trying to achieve, but the team, and depending on the size of the team, they have to make hundreds and thousands of micro decisions every time. So you can't be babysitting the team for every decision that they make. But if you kind of communicate them clearly, here's the context we are trying to operate in, here's how it aligns to our vision strategy, then it frees them up to kind of make those micro decisions that they make in everything that they do in their day-to-day job. So how to keep the team aligned? A leader can do is there's nothing called over communication. Like, just over communicate if you had to, um, but be clear on the context and kind of communicate that very crisply to your competent team, and just help them in whatever blockers they can. Because if you build the team, they can deliver the outcome that they're looking for.
Yes, right. Do you mostly rely on internal talent, or do you also work with external technology partners? Like, what guides your decision in this process?
Um, I think I started by saying one person or one skill set cannot do everything, right? Similarly, it's really hard, even if there's a big company, for one company to deliver an outcome of highest magnitude. There are few companies that can make that happen, but in general, and the domain that I operate on, we do a lot of things ourselves. We do our products and all of that, but we have very highly valued partners across the chain who also are trying to kind of help customers solve the similar problems, right? And then we work together to make sure that we are making the global optima for the customer, right? Not trying to kind of make the local optimas for ourselves and saying my product is awesome, my product is awesome, but when customers trying to stitch them together, it doesn't work for them, right? Um, and that kind of work happens a lot in networking space, specifically in the standard bodies, IEEE, WFA, all those things, where people kind of go and make standards around it. But then we work above and beyond standards with those technology partners to say, okay, here's what we are seeing customers trying to solve for. Now they're using your phones or your devices or whatever else to achieve these goals. And we are the connectivity provider. How do we make sure that we first implement the standards right way? But two, if standard have deficiencies in the system, we go above and beyond standard. Of course, even if standard is implemented, you have to validate in the system that it is working together fine. So yes, it's just not our org. We work with many reputed partners across the world to kind of get to the outcomes.
Yes, got it. So, work-life balance is kind of something new trend. So, what are your thoughts on work-life balance? Like, how do you personally manage strike that balance?
Work-life balance. Interesting question. Um, Look, it's not possible. Oh, let me take a step back. Humans are not machines, right? And maybe that's what we are trying to do using AI and robotics. But taking a break and rejuvenating yourselves helps improve quality and productivity, right? So it's very, very important to take a break as needed and spend time with family on a hobby, anything else that you like. Get time off and kind of get back to that. It improves productivity, and there are enough studies around it. Now, the question is, how do you do that? Do you go back to, I only work 9 to 5 and I don't work after that? Or do you have flexibility in the system? I would say answer is different from different set of people. So for a modern organization and modern leadership that is kind of shaping up those organizations, it's important to realize that not everyone is the same. Somebody like me, I don't believe in 9 to 5, personally speaking. If I have an idea, unless I do something about it that is needed from my point of view, I don't get sleep, right? So for me to be able to relax, I need to kind of make sure that is not in my brain, but it translated into whatever it's going to. There are many people in my home and my team who are very systematic about it, right? Even if they have idea, they can shut it off and they can do 9 to 5. They can get to it when they have a 9 to 5 time or whatever that is, which is a very organized way of doing things. I wish I was like them. Um, but going back to the question that you're trying to ask, I think modern organizations realize that, and many companies are going to more flexible way of doing things. You take break when you need it. Since we work on this time separated world across the globe, it's really not possible to say we are only going to do 9 to 5. So we have to be flexible, nimble, but leaders also have to realize that I'm sitting in front of computer does not mean I'm productive. Uh, judge me on my outcomes, not on the time that I spend in front of a screen. And that has to be priority and for the leaders to understand.
Nice one. As you mentioned about your team, so I have a question. Can you give an example of a practice that you have implemented to support work-life balance in your team?
Oh, so I give again. It's a question to be asked to my team members, but I would say this: we have a practice, especially I do in my team whenever the new team member joins, how to work with me, and it's a written thing, just one slider, right? What is my importance, right? So you may say, I prefer email, I don't like Slack or chat, or vice versa. Or if there's a problem, call me, mail me, whatever different preferences that you have. In that, the first thing is family first, and you don't need permission, right? So if you have to take a break, you can just go off. That's one ritual that we have followed. I also want to say this and kind of recognize this. There are very senior and more talented folks that I lead. And while we have different personalities in each one of them, but if they're competent and they know what they're trying to achieve, and they are very clear in terms of outcome, uh, it's been, I would say, 5+ years that I'm leading product teams now. Uh, Not even once it came to, oh, I could have done this, but I could not because I had to take a break. Same time, we have had family emergencies and other situations in the team. And it's just not that the person was there, he may or may not have been there, but then the other team members sort of step up and do what is necessary for that outcome to be delivered. So it's rare in a mature team and organization to kind of get into these kind of issues. Thankfully, I have not run into any of these scenarios, but even if that happens, there's no doubt that family comes first, right? Now, if somebody say, I want to go and watch, a World Cup final or something else, that's a different problem to solve for. And maybe we all as a team go and do as a fun outing there. But I think these are small issues and should not be major factor for any team's operations. No.
This sounds interesting. So moving ahead, how do you see disruptive technologies being influenced by geopolitical affairs or dynamics?
I think geopolitics, and I'm not saying politics in the bad sense, plays a big role in adoption of any technology. I think we were discussing in the context of cloud and how different policymakers are looking for, hey, we need, for example, make in India or India specific cloud or things like that, right? That forces uh, the ecosystem to kind of align to that. What happened in fintech world in India in last 5 years is an amazing example of how geopolitics or policies of the government of the day can enable technology at a rapid pace. Same time, if policies are not aligned, no matter what kind of technology and product elements you have, it will not work out. And I'm using India specific examples, but what is happening around India and China and apps and Huawei and bunch of other things, it blocks your market as well. So geopolitics plays a big role. I mean, why today? What happened in World War II and around automobile industry and how different innovations came together, or what happened in COVID times and government policy support in building one, the mechanism or the medicines around it, but two, also people realize the um, not so resilient supply chains and how the policymakers across the world are now trying to kind of focus on resilient supply chains and around it. So geopolitics, because geopolitics controls a lot many resources or the ways to kind of get stuff done, they play huge role in technology adoption and transformation. No questions about that.
So, can you share an example of a strategic decision you made that was influenced by both tech disruption and geopolitical consideration?
So I don't know if users relate to the micro decisions that my team makes, but I would put it this way. Um, Cisco Meraki recently launched India Cloud 2 weeks back. That's why I was there for in Bangalore. And Make in India. Those are two big initiatives that are happening in Indian context. And every company, including mine, knows that India is a big market that we all want to kind of cater for. To cater that requirement, we cater that market. We have to meet those requirements, right? Now, of course, there are ROI considerations in terms of, if the market size is not big enough, can I ignore it and move on and things like that. But if I realize that the market is big enough for me, I would do everything to kind of make and meet with those requirements. And that's why you see Cisco sort of investing in and making Cisco Meraki India Cloud. What that does, it does many things. It changes many things for us as an org, but also for the country that is bringing that kind of policies in. Now, policymakers also needs to know that if they are making such requirements, which is specific to that country, if the market is not big enough, companies will start ignoring that market and not even address it, and they may left behind, right? And there are countries which I don't want to name right now, but because XYZ does something, I want to be able to do something without kind of knowing the importance and the market that they're catering to. People, they get ignored, and which means slowing down of technology adoption in that country, right? So yeah, it's very context driven in terms of product and strategy choices that any organization has to make relevant to the geopolitics of the company. But it is also very, I would say, context driven in the country's geopolitics and the world that they operate in. For example, I'm using another thing. A certain vendor from China in the networking space is blocked from Europe and Americas, right? Um, which means no matter how good or bad product that they have, because they come from certain geography, they are not allowed. Now, if I am a company that is operating out of that country, it leaves me 70-75% of global TAM out. So then whatever I do, it will be limited to that space. So yeah, I mean, coming back to your specific question, Cisco, it's been bullish on Cisco India. We opened the global center in 2007, and I spent 10 years there. But most recently, with Make in India and other things that Indian government has put together, we have started India Cloud 2 weeks back, and we are making progresses in our products. Kind of have more Make in India out there.
Yes, this will really help, especially the examples. So, my last question for you is like, in your view, what should be the lasting impact of technology on humanity and the world?
Uh-huh. So technology in general, right, from ancient time till today, one one primary role that it has played is improve the quality of life of individuals or as a group. And you can go as far as go back. You want to go and see how from animals to transportation to the different technology elements that we have. One primary lasting impact that technology has and will continue to have, so it's not like at any point of time technology stops, is to improve the quality of the life of the people for better, right? In terms of your life, if you are a healthcare, think in terms of life expectancy. If you are in manufacture, think in terms of quality. If you are any area, if you are in education, think the quality of education that you can have now for kids and what was the situation 15, 20 years back. So one primary job and impact that uh, technology has to improve the quality of life. Second, I would think staying on the positive sort of impact trajectory is uh, empowerment and autonomy that it can provide. Um, and I'm continuing to use India examples, and I can't go away from Geo. Uh, 20 years back, to get a phone connection in India, and maybe 25 now, not 20, uh, you used to wait for 2 years for BSNL to give you a landline. There are very far and few people who could afford connectivity to internet. Um, I would say one per district kind of thing where you had a real internet connectivity. Today, with what internet has, what Geo has done, everyone, and I would say in India, I would dare say that India is much ahead from rest of the developed world in terms of connectivity and the speed, because India doesn't have the brownfield problem. If we can talk about brownfield problem later, but India doesn't have an existing install base. They can do everything fresh out of there and 4G and 5G technologies, right? The QR codes that you have out there in fintech world that you guys operate a lot. Uh, there are many countries that can boast that kind of digital infrastructure, right? So, and it has connected the unconnected people. Like in my trip to India, I saw so many good use cases and different set of people using it for different things. So that's a good use of technology. But remember, technology again, like I said, it's just not the technology. It's how do you use it. Bad actors can also do what the example that I gave you in Hiroshima, in terms of nuclear technology or AI, for example. I would go and say this: um, whatever that we are trying to do, there are deepfakes coming out using those technologies that you talk about, AI and GPT and all of that. Now, how do you fight that? Can that have a negative impact? It can certainly have. It can have a long-lasting negative impact. Um, so it's how do you use it? But if you have to kind of zoom out and sum it up, technology's impact on human life is about improving the quality of the life, and it'll continue to do so as long as there are enough good people in the system trying to make good use of technology.
Yes, that's true. That was my last question, and just wanted to say that this has been a truly enlightening conversation, Yogesh. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and experience with us. So thank you so much, Yogesh.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thanks for taking it on a weekend. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for giving your valuable time today for us.